Good afternoon. It's the 19th of March 2025. It's a great clear day. The sky is clear. You can see the sun. It's shining through a tree there. And I'm just about getting a little shelter from it. Right, well, I have enough of Conor McGregor for now. You got your comments there, and I hope it provided a context for it, and we'll see what happens. I don't think it's possible to goad our government or the EU into changing migration policy. I just think it's not possible in the medium term anyway, immediately. But anyway, there's no harm to air it. Now, one of the things that has happened is that there have been talks, I think it was yesterday, between President Trump and Vladimir Putin over the phone. And I think what's coming out from it generally is that the Russians are more or less telling Europe and all the rest that you're only stragglers. There's only two superpowers in the world, Russia and the United States. And this would be in line with President Trump's policy of trying to edge Russia away from China, because if Russia and China get together too much, they'd even sideline the United States. There seems to be a point of view that even three leaders in world order is not good. There has to be just two. And it looks like both of them kind of know that. But anyway, the talks, one of the things that has been arranged already about the talks is diplomatic relations between the United States and Russia to be restored. That's already a done deal. That's to be the case. Now, that shouldn't upset Europe too much, because there are diplomatic missions from Russia in Europe. We have a Russian embassy in Dublin. And they go out and about. I think I saw one of them over in the dock one day looking across a ditch. Paddy the Spy. But anyway, I'm only joking there. But I'll turn a wee bit away from the sun. But anyway, that's the first thing. The second thing that seems to have happened at the recent meeting was that they've agreed to stop hostilities when it comes to energy infrastructure. In other words, the Russians have agreed that they won't attack nuclear or conventional power generation and distribution because of the need of hospitals and everything for electricity. And this is a start, and the Russians have agreed to this. Now, the war rages on, and in Kursk, the Russians are killing a lot of the troops in the cauldron of Kursk, which is inside of Russia. I explained that before. But there seems to be a good rapport between the Russians and President Trump, and I can well understand it, because a lot of observers are making the point that there is a Trump factor. When he breezes into a meeting, there's a kind of a different attitude. And while in Europe it's one of fear and trepidation and hatred, in Canada as well, in the rest of the world they kind of like him, you see. It's sort of same as sort of like me. Yes, this rogue coming, what do we do with him now? And they don't want to, they don't fear him, and they don't hate him, if you know what I mean. So in any event, he's the only president in America to go in across the 38th parallel into North Korea, when Kim Jong-un could have taken him prisoner. He still didn't mind. He went in and did it. And I always admired him for that. That's not forgotten. So the story now is that they're pushing ahead trying to get a ceasefire. And everyone mocks Trump. He said he'd have peace in 48 hours. Well, look at it. We know that's a bit of an extension. But he still is moving towards peace. He has already got a ceasefire. And he only took office on the 20th of January. And so that's the first step. And I wouldn't at all be surprised now if there'll be a gradual kind of a de facto ceasefire, a gradual easement. The word is, folks, that Zelensky, president or whatever you like to call him, has accepted some territories will have to go. He'll not be keeping Ukraine. And don't forget, Ukraine is a recent concept. It was split up on different borders over the years. Now, I would imagine the Russians would like to get Odessa, but I don't know, will they? But there's a thing called the Zelensky curse. In other words, that anyone that sits down to have anything to do with Zelensky will be cursed politically. And President Trump wouldn't be cursed because he gave him a dressing down. He told him off. But certainly there's a talk of a Zelensky curse. It has damaged all politicians that touches it, but that's only superstition, of course. But there's another thing called the Ukraine trap that has been identified by military strategists. And that is that if the Russians keep going on and take over all of Ukraine, they'll get it very, very hard to escape from it. In other words, they'll get bogged down in the whole of the Ukraine that'll leave their mission spun out, difficult to resolve. If they take out the Ukrainian government, it'll be hard to get a replacement in time to come. There'll be all kinds of negotiations and everything. Whereas at the present, there's a government there, there's a civil structure there, and there's probably police and all of that. So you wouldn't need to rebuild a lot of that. And it's I hear that Putin understands that. In the last 30 years, the Russians do diplomacy very well, better than anybody else does it. So I think the Russians are going to steer clear. They're not going to get bogged down in the rest of the Ukraine. They'll draw a line and say, that's it. And that probably will be it. And this puts a lie to the EU's talk of them taking over Poland and Germany. That is unbelievable stupidity. What would they do with it? Be a nightmare having them crowd. Imagine taking over them crowd. So, well, for a start, if they took over, we said Germany, the Germans would be entitled to go into Russia, and the German refugees and migrants would be entitled to go into Russia because it would be the one country. That's not going to happen. Now, excuse the whine in the background, that's the rah-rah wind farm. But it's a lovely evening other than that. Now, the thing about it is the European Union and the British are gone nuts. They have net zero, they call it net zero, but they're gone nuts over this. And they're beginning to come to the realization that the big daddy of the America is not reliable anymore. And that even if Trump says he will look after Europe from NATO, they can't trust him. And this is what people say, I wouldn't trust Trump. I never could figure what they meant. Did anyone ever that said I wouldn't trust Trump know or mean that I wouldn't trust Trump to keep NATO intact? I don't think anyone in Ireland said that. I think they meant I wouldn't trust Trump with my wife or my daughter. I think that's what they meant. Or I wouldn't lend him €1,000. But the real trust of Trump is that he's getting sick of the Europeans. And I've said before, you can never get the Europeans to change their way of voting. It takes 400 years at least. Now, it's the hotbed of war, and Hitler and all them are all a part of that. So the European Union under Ursula von der Leyen has said she's laying aside €800 billion for a start-off to mobilise Europe and get weapons made. The Volkswagen plant is already, I believe, making weapons. Other plants have been put on notice to make weapons. We're not going to get very many cars, I'm afraid, from there. But the money has to go in from the government. And borrowing it is not a great choice. They're spooked. The right thing to do is do nothing and ask the Americans to let them in on the final stages of the talks and find out what the Europeans can expect from America and Russia. And if Russia gave a promise to leave the settlement they get alone and no more extension of NATO and get the Nazis out of Ukraine, and if that's done the way they want, then the Americans might be able to give a guarantee that they will not let the Russians break that word. And I'd say the Russians would stick with that. That'd be the way I'd be doing it. Because the cost of militarizing Europe is out of this world. It's an ill wind that blows no good. Because at long last, after 20 years of climate nonsense from them, net zero, Ludramond politics, windmills, these stupid things here, solar panels, all the money going into that, and the made in China mostly. At long last, Europe has to decide where it's going to get the money. Now, will they abandon all the green stuff? I can't say. The Labour Party in Britain is determined to raise an army and to keep the green things going. You'd fit the British Army, British military, into a football stadium. They had abandoned going to sea in battleships because they have no crew. But the question is, where are they going to get the money? And there's a lady on there, she's an American economist, she's a very good lady YouTuber, Lena Petrova. Lovely girl and an intelligent lady. And she's well worth looking at there. Lena Petrova, I think that's the way you spell it. But she's American accent anyway. And she gives a cool appraisal of it. And she says they have already decided, and she says she has already evidence of where they're going to get the money. They're going to take it out of the accounts of savers. So somebody who has 200,000 in the bank will find it gone. They might leave them €100. And they'll give them old bonds that's no good for anything. You won't be able to cash them in for 10 years. Right? A poor Europe that should be looking after its people, housing them, providing them with cheap energy and all that, and that has its industry decimated, is hoping now to start a major drive for military, tanks, guns, bombs, the whole lot. Where they're going to get the manpower, that's a big question. But they know they won't have the Yanks there. And the Yanks army is good because we still have capitalism in America. The Yanks could still fight a big war, and there's no doubt Vladimir Putin or China or Donald Trump do not want to be leading a war against either China or Russia or in any way mixing up with that. And you can well understand that they know that is an absolute disaster. And so they're going to take the money, steal it from accounts. And you might think I'd be saying, that's terrible, they'll take all the money, Isn't it great? Wouldn't it be great if the Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil and Sinn Féin supporters, with after selling places and after a lifetime saving, found their whole money gone? Oh, I have 200,000 in the credit union, so that's all I have for me retirement. And I went in yesterday, and there it was. I seen it. It's there in the book, and it's gone. It's gone. It's gone. Now, there is a health aspect to this happening. It could affect a lot of my subscribers, and I must warn you, if you're on any medication, take them before you look at my videos on this subject. If they take the whole money of the Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael and Sinn Féin in Ireland, and all the farmers and all the business people and all their money, and this comes out on Joe Duffy, I will die laughing. How will we stop laughing? We won't be able to work or do anything. If they lose the whole lot, I hope to take every penny of them and leave them with nothing. All gone to fight the war with the Russians, and they might take their sons and daughters as well. So we might have the last laugh on the carry-on that goes on. But Lena says that they're chipping up to get this 800 billion out of the bank accounts of people. The way they see it is, if someone has money in the bank there and they're getting 3% interest, it could be someone after selling a house, we'll say for 100,000. Could be $1 million. There's a lot of money in Ireland in accounts. I know that from bank staff and that tell you. They wouldn't tell you who had them, but they'd say, there's a lot of money in there. And the EU knows that's there. And they're not going to leave it, that they're going to whip it. And the gold reserves in London are flying across the Atlantic to New York, because there's a suspicion that if the Hardy comes to Hardy, the gold will be seized. It'll be taken, and people will get bonds. So I'm just bringing it to your attention. That lady is a good commentator, Lena Petrova. And you give her a like there, and that's good. She's a great old commentator, great economic commentator, and thinks like me in ways. They're going mad for war. They're panicking. The Germans say they'll be under the British nuclear umbrella and the French nuclear umbrella. It'll take them a while to get nuclear weapons. And they'll be protected nuclear by France and Germany. So there'll be a sort of a NATO for France and Germany. And there seems to be no stopping President Donald Trump in pulling out of Europe. The quicker he does, the better. But isn't it gas? Isn't it funny? Isn't it amazing? They're not going to leave money lying around in bank accounts when they need to fight Putin. Their view among themselves is Putin must not be allowed to win. Russia must never be allowed to win the war. And here we are, he's winning it. And they don't even get a seat at the table. Although Ukraine will have to be consulted, they'll be handed an ultimatum. Trump will say, you'll have to agree with this and we'll throw you a few pounds, a few euros, a few dollars. And there'll be an agreement on what type of military will be in Ukraine. The whole thing could be sorted out by August. And it'd be great if it was. I'd love to see it. I'd love to see the death and those young lads lifted off the street, let out and released. All right, folks, isn't that a good one? 16 minutes. That's what's shaping up in the EU. Oh, imagine all the Fianna Fáil crowd with the money stacked away, and the fine Gaelers, and the Shinners, and the people before property. They all have money too. They're all voting left wing and voting Labour and Communist, and they have more money than the people they're shouting about. But they may lose it all. The quicker, the better. And as I say, our health has to come first. A lot of people that I know subscribe to me could take fits of laughing, and I'm going to put a warning on anything to do with this. Don't view my videos on this subject, on the taking of the money, without being sure you're properly sitting down and relaxed and have somebody there, because they're laughing. How am I going to go out and do my work? Laughing at them. Money, there's me money. It was in the credit union last week. I went in today, and there it was. I seen it in the book. And it's gone. They left me €50 for a cup of coffee. I mean, that's just too much. Too much. We will die laughing. Comment underneath. We'll see you back soon. Thank you.